resiliency and recovery, and what do you think, what are your top priorities in the coming year as far as that goes?
Well, to make the city stronger, more sustainable, more resilient, that's in terms of infrastructure. We know we need to widen the bayous. We know that, and the work has already started with respect to Project Graves. As you can recall, the city borrowed $46 million from Texas Water Development Board to pass it over to the Harris County Flood Control District to get that going. So the dirt work is taking place now. The retrofitting of the bridges that kind of serve as a dam, that work is taking place now. And so that project will be completed on time certain. So they're leading on the major detention basin in Inwood Forest. That's about 224 acres. And so that's a significant plus. And we talked about the green infrastructure, all of those things in place. With respect to the housing repair and reconstruction, you're never going to be satisfied until everybody's needs have been met. Okay, so you continue to work at it. And so we're working through that process. It is a very tenuous process, a lot of your steps that you have to go through. But I think we're in a point now where the process and the systems are in place. And so we're moving forward now with increasing the staffing internally. And then we are going to be contracting more specifically with the things that are needed in order to expedite the process. And so, and I'm pleased with now the direction in which we're taking on that. But you know, there were like 300,000 units that were impacted by Hurricane Harvey, 125,000 single-family homes, about 200,000 apartment units. So it was a massive storm. And even though it's 2 years out, I think people, as you reflect on, you know, what occurred back on August 25th and the days after, more rain fell on the city of Houston than on any city at any time in the country's history. Our initial recovery was very quick. I'm very pleased how everybody pulled together, and not just the government sector, but businesses, people that live in this city. It didn't matter what the differences were. We all pulled together, and we moved forward. And that same spirit is going to be required as we move to recover from the storm. We'll be in this recovery phase for the next 3 to 6 years.
That were voted on today about North Braeswood. Can you kind of just provide some context on what's been going on with those? I know you produced some contracts in February. What took so long for them?
Well, the home elevation ran into financial difficulty, and so those things have been reassigned, and they are now back on track. We've previously, the city was awarded, I think, 85 additional home elevations. When you take those 85 with the past ones, it's about 166, I think, in terms of home elevations. That's all throughout the city, not just in one district, but throughout the city of Houston. So that's a FEMA-directed program. They're the ones who select the homes to be elevated, but it is a part of the recovery process and putting people in a better position to withstand future storms as they come.
And extend the contracts by another 3 years, so those homeowners could potentially not be back in those homes for another 3 years, or mind this would happen?
I don't be in place with a new contractor, and instead of homeowners making their deposits with the contractors, which was the previous practice, they're now making those deposits with the city, so that if a contractor runs into trouble, they don't lose their deposits. So that
team that you have going forward, was that at your urging, or what role did you play in sort of why?
In terms of after, for example, the processes have been put in place, the system has been put in place, but I think we can move even quicker under this new system that I want to implement. And that is, instead of going to one big contractor, for that big contractor to do everything, we're going to increase the internal staffing within housing and community development, and then identify specific what our needs are, and then engage with smaller contracts that much more easily manageable, and we can move much faster. So for example, what we are needing now is more inspectors, so that we can do the environmental checks, testing, and we can move the process much quicker. We believe with this new system where we're dealing with, where you contract specifically with what you need, and then you move forward.
The contract, the Aptom contract was for 5 years though, so I'm a little confused. I think that's what Director McCausland said as well. It had come to its end, but when it was signed, it was a 3-year deal with 2 one-year options.
No, it was, there were 2 procurements.
Uh-huh.
The first phase was for a much bigger contract,
Okay.
for an additional procurement, so it was 2 procurements. The first one, the time period came to an end.
Yeah.
And instead of going to the second procurement, the second phase, I've elected, instead of dealing, contracting with one big contractor that has the responsibility of doing everything, for us to identify what our specific needs are, and then to beef up our internal staffing, and then simply contract on a smaller scale with the specific things that you need. So in this case, for example, what we need to move much quicker, and I believe more efficiently, now that the process and the systems are in place, we need inspectors.
But it was pulled today. You'll be back to
Only
interview.
because the contracts haven't been signed.
And should we not read that as Mayor Turner running out of patience with the slow pace of this?
Well, I think you can read it as to say that the mayor and this administration is always going to be looking for the best method and the best model to expedite the process so that people can get what they need as quickly as possible. Now that the process has been in place and the systems have been in place, I think the better model to move to expedite is to identify specifically what you need,
Okay.
and to engage with that particular area of expertise on a much smaller scale. And quite frankly, another benefit is that it will save us money that we can then put on more on housing repair and reconstruction. So instead of spending $38 million with one big contractor that's charged with the responsibility of doing everything, in this case, instead of 38 million, you go 4.65, and you're hiring inspectors. You know what you're getting. Everybody knows what their responsibility will be. You know where to look if it's not getting done.
Okay.
And then if you need something in another particular area, you contract with that specific area. And I know who to hold accountable, and I know what their responsibilities are. And then as we interface with GLO, we can move the process quicker. And I think this system will work much better for the city, and quite frankly, much better for homeowners who are waiting to get their homes repaired and rebuilt.
I was wondering, what is the city capable of doing in terms of gun control? I know she says that the county's hands are pretty tied because of state and federal law, but what is the city hall?
And the judge and I talked about this topic. For example, we had our brothers' wishes and how to speak preferences. We would impose background checks on the gun shows that are held, for example, at the Georgia Brown. But we are preempted by that, by state law. State law is preempted. When the city has attempted to impose checks in the past, we were sued, the city was sued, and we did not prevail. And since then, the legislature has even strengthened its position in terms of preempting the city from doing anything that would impose checks on those who sell or distribute guns. We think that's a wrong position, and we both strongly encourage the legislature, in spite of what the governor is saying about not wanting to meet in a special session until 2021, to meet right now in a special session and to impose background checks that 90% of people want, 90% that people want background checks. And if the state's not willing to do it, at least allow the city to impose background checks. That's number one. And if I had my brothers, or I could do it today, I would do it today, but the state has preempted us. The other thing is working with the Houston Area Women's Center on doing some things, and the county judge and I talked about that, and I think we'll have an announcement on that coming fairly soon. And there are 1 or 2 other additional things that we're looking at doing, but I don't want to kind of just lay it out today.
Are they going to create a big impact on?
Well, I think the reality is that it is important for us all to do something. Just the talk is not doing anything, And it seems as though after these shootings occur, people's elected officials, policymakers say the right things immediately or after these mass shootings, and then as time elapses, then people back away and fall right back into the positions that they have subscribed to in the past. That has gotten old, and the mass shootings continue. And I'm hoping that what took place in El Paso and what took place in Dayton were game changers. It tipped the scale. And I hope that people will hold all of us as elected officials and leaders accountable. It's important that we act and we do what we can to say to the general public and specifically to our children that we are doing something, that we are acting on their behalf. And we shouldn't wait for the perfect solution instead of doing things that are good. So I just feel strongly about it. I do think that it's time for us to do something. I do think for people who, and those who seek to lead, that don't speak out on it and say something, that should disqualify people from assuming leadership positions. But, I offer my prayers and offer my condolences. But I also know that prayer without works doesn't go very far at all. So, too many mass shootings, too many people losing their lives, too many guns that are on the street, and we simply just can't leave it to law enforcement alone. We have to utilize law enforcement, but it's important for the legislature to act now, not in 2021, okay? Not 2 years after the fact. It's important for Congress, the United States Senate, to act and not put it off. And unless the public demands it and holds people feet to the fire, people are not going to change. They're not going to do anything different. And I think the public deserves it, and our children deserve it. They deserve more than just forever.
With the contract that was signed a few months ago, if it's sufficient, if it's doing well, part 2 of it would be brought up.
I know they've been having different workshops with different groups and meeting with different groups and talking about it quite a bit. When we're out talking about the census, talking about the census. And it's going to take a lot of work now because of the rhetoric and these, the mass deportations and the anxiety that people have. People are simply going to be reluctant to participate with the census, and we're trying to overcome that.
And the contract that is active right now with them is what?
Charity, I think we've indicated that too.
But why wouldn't you give it back to the victims you stole it from?
I think we're gonna give it to a charity.
I understand, I'm just asking.
One question, this is not